If you guys haven't seen from the millions of YouTube videos, Twitter posts, Reddit threads, whatever, Hazard is out and is now playable this weekend in Overwatch. He's the newest tank, and the biggest thing that I've seen in terms of feedback from the community is that a lot of his abilities are similar to other abilities that heroes have already. Not much is different. We've seen most of this before. This is the biggest source of controversy, and for me, it's not a big deal. And I'd like to take this video and tell you why I think that. From a lore perspective, Hazard is a part of this group called the Freaks, and from what I've been able to tell from the video they released, his announcement trailer and stuff like that, it's a group of people that, heavily modify their body. If you guys have played Cyberpunk at all, it's basically the equivalent of getting these implants, He needed prosthetics, he wanted to upgrade them, and that's what he did. From my perspective, he went to a very low end, in Cyberpunk, once again, you'd call them Ripper Docs, street doctors basically, with illegal tech, whatever. He basically got watered down versions of what the Overwatch heroes have. We know Overwatch has, the most cutting edge technology, the best engineers, the best scientists, whichever. So to me, it made sense that when he went to go get these enhancements, these implants, they were lesser versions of what we've seen from other heroes. Lore-wise, I feel like that's covered. In the game, the abilities that he does have, admittedly, are very, very similar to other heroes, but it's still different enough, and with his playstyle and his role, I think it really does work. Beginning with all of his abilities, starting with Jagged Wall, it's basically like Mei's Ice Wall. The main difference being, as you can tell in the name, it is jagged, and it does damage to players who stand too close to it. When I saw this in game, I thought it was a brilliant way of helping this tank, create space, do the job that tanks fulfill. With tanks like Reinhardt or Sigma, they'd be reliant on their shield. And one of the big problems with Overwatch 1 was that people were tired of shooting shields instead of the players. It doesn't feel as impactful. And the same can be said in Overwatch 2. No one enjoys shooting shields, so with this tank, having him throw up a mobile wall that helps create space seems like an almost brilliant way to work around this issue. And this leads to his next ability, which is called Spike Guard. And the obvious comparison is to Doomfist's block. The difference being that, the spikes from Hazard's back shoot out and damage enemies that are in front of him, providing sort of like an offensive and defensive, ability there. And like I referred to before with Junker Queen and Mauga, this removes the need for Hazard to have to worry about his own health and, giving him an ability to regenerate his own health. If anything, this gives his supports a chance to help him, still allowing him to create space with that offensive, spike ability, which, I'm going to constantly refer back to Junker Queen and Mauga, especially Mauga, because Mauga was so controversial. I think Junker Queen was overpowered for a time, but even she found her own way to sort of become balanced and fit into the game, where she was able to be independent in a way with that shout ability and her whole bleed thing and her whole health regeneration that she can do independent of healers and supports. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that it feels like with Hazard, Blizzard is moving in the direction of making tanks self-sufficient without necessarily making them frustrating to play against. And another part of this self-sufficientness of tanks right now is his next ability, which is called Violent Leap. Basically, it's just like a mobile ability. He can jump forward and he has the option to slash, but the way I've seen it played out and the way that I've used it is to help move around the map. In my opinion, this made him almost comparable to D.Va almost. I wouldn't call him a dive tank per se, but having an ability like a movement ability like that, where it's not like Reinhardt's where it's straight in one line, there is some verticality to it. I thought that was super interesting and super fun to play with. The comparison here to other heroes is kind of weak, but once again, you can go back to Doomfist and the way he's able to launch himself forward and say, oh, it's a similar ability. But this one's more unique, and I'm glad that he has his own sense of having unique abilities in the sense that he's not a carbon copy of any other hero. But speaking of movement abilities, he does have one more. I think it's almost like a passive movement ability. It's like a wall grapple. It's not exactly like Genji, Hanzo, or Kiriko's wall climb, but it's almost similar, It adds to the sense of verticality. So I think in combination with his Violent Leap ability, it grants him movement that a lot of the other tanks simply don't have. Comparable movement sets would be like D.Va, who's able to propel herself wherever she wants. It could be Winston, who can leap to wherever he wants. I just think the wall climb, wall grapple is like a small little addition that grants him a little more movement. So it contributes well to his other movement ability is basically what I'm trying to say. And finally comes his ultimate, which is called Downpour. Basically, from what I've seen and as I've played it, you sort of look in the direction that you want and a line will light up, like a vertical strip will highlight, and down falls a bunch of shards and it'll trap your opponents in place. You can make the argument that it's similar to some DPS, some tank ults. I've heard the comparisons to Mei, I've heard the comparisons to Mauga, where it's essentially just trapping your enemy in a certain place. But I think it's very well done because it's not overpowered in a sense. God knows I've used the ult plenty of times in my limited time playing with him, and I haven't really benefited from it at all because I'm not prepared to capitalize on having such an advantage. Similar to Mauga's ult, it does depend on having your team there ready to back you up and to sort of play alongside you as you take this advantage of having your enemies stuck in place. Overall, I think it's an ultimate that contributes really well to his design. It attributes to his whole spike look and the rest of his kit with his movement abilities. He can dash around, move to different targets that are immobilized. I dig it. There's not much to hate. But overall, having listed those abilities and all that, I think, I've made a pretty good argument as to why he's understandably, on the surface, very similar to other characters' abilities in Overwatch, but he still remains unique in the way that he employs them and the way that they all fit together to sort of create this flowing kit, It's like you'll see someone throw down the jagged wall behind an enemy, and then they'll, violent leap towards them and close the gap and use their primary fire, maybe use the spike guard if they're low health. It just seems to really flow well into picking up these individual engagements and then having the movement abilities to either, move away, move up away and look down, get the height advantage, or to move closer to a target, whatever you want. I mean, it seems like combining these movement abilities with this skill set makes him a very, very versatile character. Obviously, I don't know if it'll play well in comp. You guys know I'm a gold tank, to be honest. That was never my forte, but I did play in arcade a few matches as support to see what it was like to heal him, and as I think I'm showing an Ana gameplay here, he's very vertical. He's up on the high ground fighting other tanks, other players, the enemy team. It definitely forces the healer to be more cognizant of where he's at. I know I'm playing arcade, so there's 4 or 5 hazards on the team, but I think I played almost a match as every healer with him, so I know Baptiste did really well because his charge jump is able to join Hazard on high grounds and stuff, or take the high ground and support him from above. I know Juno was great at amplifying his movement speeds and stuff, so I think the same would be true for a hero like Lucio. I know Brig is a fun to play as well because Hazard seems to be a very close range character, so having Brig there almost as someone to heal as well as aid in damaging the enemy is a really cool combo to have. Obviously, we'll see how comp feels, or how the general game feels when more people are able to play him in a non-arcade setting, which is the case for every hero we've seen so far. But let me know what you guys think. Is my argument somewhat, smart and acceptable? Is his abilities different enough from other heroes to feel unique? Or is this something that you think a lot of people will be stuck up on? Real quick, thanks for 500 subscribers. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here. I don't know what I'm up to. I don't know how I've made it this far. I just know that I'm doing something right, and you guys have been very, very supportive of me. So thank you very much. Thank you.